All right. As a matter of fact, we have the issue of timing here this morning, so we're going to do away with the backgrounder, which of course would have given us a line for conversation. For now, we have in the studio a number of guests who are going to partake in this very second leg of our conversation this morning. And first, we have Professor Muhammad Kota Yahya, Professor of Agriculture, University of Ibadan, and former SSG, Niger State. So you're welcome to the program.
It's a pleasure, sir. Good morning.
All right. We also have Aziz Moyowa, former Director, Agri-Business, Federal Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development. So it's a pleasure to have you this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right. We also have Sharon Tage, Media and Communications Lead, Lofty Inc. Allied Partners Limited. I hope I got that correctly.
Yes, you did. Thank you so much. Good morning.
All right. You're welcome. Kinsley.
All right, now let's check out our Zoom connection. We're supposed to have Professor Emmanuel Ikani, Executive Director and CEO of the National Agricultural Extension and Research Liaison Services at ABU in Zaria. Professor Ikani, pleasure to have you. I hope you are.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate to join the program.
Okay, we also have Tunji Ido, also via Zoom, Executive Director, Foundation for Partnership Initiatives in the Niger Delta. And this, of course, facilitates access to inputs, markets, and technologies for smallholder farmers in the Niger Delta region. Tunji Ido, if you are there via Zoom, of course, I understand that the connection is blank. So we place an asterisk against that. Gentlemen, and Sharon, once again, I'd delight to have you with us on the program this morning. Our time is largely abridged, so we go straight into the essence of agriculture entrepreneurship. We will be hearing agri as a business. When we say agricultural entrepreneurship, what are we looking at, Professor Kota Yahya?
Thank you very much. The concept emanates from the fact that agriculture, like all other occupations and careers, is hinged on production and engaging people in various value chains. So opportunity for people to earn legitimate income from engagement in this occupation make it a very lucrative entrepreneurship. In our own concept, to achieve this, the International Agricultural and Food Policy Research Center in Washington, D.C. has requested and developed a robust framework for the sound agricultural ecosystem, where it relates that to achieve this, you need policy, you need institutional framework, and technological support system and individual capacity. In our own climb, to achieve this, we know that policy, consistency is desirous for us to achieve a successful agricultural entrepreneurship. Where you are inundated or challenged with policy somersault. Today is this package, tomorrow a new person comes in, he jettishans it, another person come up with a fresh one, and then we continue to move on the same spot without any progress. It's not acceptable for successful entrepreneurship development. We also have the challenge, institutional framework. No matter whoever is in the saddle of responsibility in managing our agricultural system, most of necessity appreciate the fact that you need, and indeed, the institutional mandate to be able to achieve what you are doing. Whoever is there does not matter. In the same vein, technology is driving the world. In agricultural extension now, we are moving from agricultural extension delivery system to knowledge management because of the sophistication that technology has brought to bear in terms of technology transfer. The same premise, individual capacity, no matter what, there is continuous engagement of those actors in the agricultural system to continue to update their knowledge because of the changes of what is happening globally. And the Nigerian agricultural system cannot be separated from what is happening in other parts of the world. Therefore,
all right, Prof. We're not cutting it short, but we want to do what I would refer to as the first round, because we have a number of guests. We will return to you in the course of the conversation. Aziz Muyiwa, you are a former director, Agri-Business in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, and you have a wide experience, when it comes to agricultural business. So what is the relationship between agri-business and agricultural entrepreneurship? Is there any synergy, between the two? And if there is, how best can this entrepreneurship be practiced?
Yeah, thank you very much. You will realize that agriculture in this country had always been a traditional way of life. People see it as a way of life. You can never be a farmer or an agriculturist unless you were born into the place. But the terminology agriculture as a business came in during the implementations of the agricultural transformation agenda when Dr. Akinwumi Adesina was the Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development. He believed that there's no way we can break this cycle of poverty unless you make agriculture as a business. What is agriculture as a business? Like he was fond of saying, anybody that sells Coke, you get Coca-Cola anywhere in Nigeria. You cannot see a situation whereby government will be involving in it and selling Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola producers, they make it available everywhere. So what he is saying is that agriculture should also be like a business where all government should do is it should be private sector led, while government should only enable it to make agriculture as a business and to ensure that people, you are able to develop them, their entrepreneurial capacity in agriculture. All government needs to do is to provide the enabling environment, provide infrastructure, provide credit facility, facilitate their access to input, provide irrigation facility, provide markets for them. Let me tell you, Nigerian business people, they are very enterprising. You will discover now, and when you look at the major contributor to this current growth rate, Nigerian growth rate, you will discover that agriculture is doing well. You guys asked a very good question. You asked the Honorable Ministers by saying that in spite of the fact that we are recording a substantial growth in the economy, why is it not reflecting on inflation? Why is it not reflecting on average common man? Why are we not seeing the impact? It is because it's not inclusive. The only thing that can be inclusive is agriculture. One of us, let me quickly say, most Nigerians want to go into agriculture now because they believe there's no options. But government must provide the enabling environment. What is pulling it now? What is drawing it now? Is because we have the market. People want to buy. The demand is very high. An average Nigerian now spends, and I want to ask you, when you look at your income now, you spend substantial part on food. You forget about clothes. You are able to tell Madam, please, let's leave articles of ostentation for now. Let's put money on food. So agriculture as a business means that you can't go into any of the enterprises. Are you going into production? Are you going to distribution of fertilizer? Are you going to production of input? Are you going to mechanization? Are you going to marketing? Anything you want to invest with the hope of getting money is a business. So what we need to do is to keep on developing their capability through extension, through training, through linkage. Luckily now we have the agricultural continental free trade, whereby there's an opportunity for Nigeria to now export. Now we are now seeing the genuity of Nigeria. Now repackaging everything. Go to the departmental store now. Gari are being packaged very well, neatly. Ijebu Gari, neatly.
Proudly advertised.
Honestly. Even Kuli, they are doing an interesting thing now by packaging both Gari and Granite together. Packaging Gari and Kuli together. And we are now facilitating the exportation of this.
Okay, Alhaji Aziz, let me pause you there and bring in Professor Emmanuel Akoni, whom we earlier introduced via Zoom. If it's there, okay, Professor Akoni, we understand we've lost you. I saw you, I think you were in a vehicle. Probably you are in a network void. Another guest, Tunji Ido, we also introduced. Tunji Ido, of course, is the Executive Director, Foundation for Partnership Initiatives in the Niger Delta. Well, I was going to ask this question. It's a bit theoretical, but at the same time, I think that it has an impact on practice. Some persons would argue that we should not strive to lump too many things together at the same time so that we can achieve the critical mass that businesses can then actually take care of. For instance, what is our production capacity in agriculture today? Are we able to generate the requisite volume such that you will see, look, business opportunities are all over the place? Should that be our priority? Or everybody is just talking about, I want to be in packaging, I want to be in logistics. What logistics of what? Logistics of imported items? If you say, look, the business now is to get all the things right there, instead of some of this back-breaking labor you still find in some quarters, get mechanized agriculture, get large-scale commercial farms, improve your seedlings, and so on and so forth, you will have the right yield. And then, of course, business will follow naturally from the way you then either corporatize or you get still be dealing with cooperatives and smallholders.
So that's quite a lot, but I'm trying to unpack that to know what the specific question you would like me to respond to is. But you're right. The truth is that we don't produce enough to meet the market that is available in the country. I hope you can hear me all right.
We can hear you. We can hear you, Mr. Ido.
Okay. We still don't produce enough, so there's quite a huge market opportunity. And even what we produce gets, a lot of it perishes because of a dearth of infrastructure and a dearth of several things that ought to be in place. But no doubt, and I want to build on what Mr. Aziz said earlier on, agriculture is a business. And more of the smallholder farmers have become aware of that. And they are doing their best, very industrious people. It's just that they're moving against some headwinds. Once we can remove more of those, then they can be incentivized and assisted to produce even more. But the truth is there's nothing that we consume here that we produce enough of. That's why there's still market for fish to be brought in, for poultry to be brought in, even though some of them are being brought in illegally. But we just don't produce enough, and that's what leaves room for alternatives. People still don't know enough about agriculture as well, about the opportunities that exist there and about the returns that you can get in doing that business, and whereby you don't have too many other businesses that will provide you some of those kind of returns. I mean, the sector can return as high as 40% if well integrated and if efficient and improved practices get deployed there. Aquaculture on its own returns an average of 30%. Poultry, if you sustain good returns over about 5 cycles, you can get about a return of 40%. Crop production, the same thing. And if you handle processing well, because many people, when they think of agriculture, only still think of the production side. That's why young people don't find that attractive. But processing and distribution can guarantee quick turnover as well. I'd like to leave it at that.
Well, you leave it at that, but I may have to continue with you. You said that the country does not produce enough, but oftentimes we hear that there are agricultural produce, that go wasting, especially the perishable ones, like fruits, tomatoes, mangoes, and carrots, and the rest of them. Now, are we not talking about the fact that if those produce are giving some value addition that they could be sustained for a while, wouldn't that have added to the volume of agricultural produce we have in Nigeria? Are we having the issue of government not providing the enabling environment, or that the farmers are incapacitated, especially the smallholder farmers, to actually engage in value addition when it comes to the produce that we churn out on a yearly basis?
You're absolutely correct. It's and the answer will be yes to both. One, we don't produce enough, so there's still room for more offtakes, for more outgrower schemes. But also part of what we produce perishes because we have poor infrastructure, because there is no value addition at those points. And we can't blame the farmers. They are mostly smallholder farmers who engage in production. But if there are enough incentives, if people have more access to information and data about these things, then others can join the value chain and undertake the value addition that you talk about. If people know that they can source produce from certain areas more conveniently, then they would not have to stick to the same markets that are already saturated. I'll tell you for an example. Cassava, Nigeria is the biggest producer of cassava in the whole world. The Niger Delta region contributes a significant chunk of that because that's the area where our own foundation operates, so I'll speak to that. But all the cassava there, almost 100% is consumed locally as gari for food. Those guys don't bother to sell to the industrial markets. The industrialists also have neglected that area for some time because they don't know how to enter. They have wrong perceptions of what the environment is. But the opportunities are now we are trying to facilitate more linkages between the people there and the off-takers from outside the environment who can use this for methanol and for starch and a few other things like that, because those opportunities are beginning to exist. But if we improve on infrastructure, roads are good, transportation improves, then a lot of these things will get out of the farms into areas where they can be taken, arrangements can be made, contracts signed for those who want to put value addition. Also, if the roads are good, infrastructure is good, people can site facilities, industries closer to the source of production for those value additions that you're talking about. I'm sure you are very familiar with the high target, highly visible tomato project that we had, but that failed woefully because of some of these kind of variables.
All right, Mr. Tunji, thank you very much there. What you said about cassava, we can also say the same thing, Kirian, about yams.
Yams.
You know, yams. It's not just for consumption or for export as was proposed some years ago. You have industrial uses as well as pharmaceutical uses for yams. Sharon Sage, let's bring you into the conversation at this time. Quite clearly, it doesn't appear that we have our fingers right on how to catalyze agribusiness in a way that ultimately to be good for all along the entire value chain. My critical emphasis has been on production, mass production in whatever area that one decides to get into. Are we on track, or are we still just scratching the surface?
So I would always say that there's room for improvement. Now, in the agri sector, we're still scratching the surface. There's so much that is left undone. And then we just have conversations around it time and time again that we do not necessarily go into the business of agri to see how it is done and to get our hands dirty to get it done. Now, we just talk. The ministries will talk, the donors who have the money and want to put it into the agri sector will just talk. But the smallholder farmers that do this work, how equipped are they for this production that we're looking to upscale? Some of them are in very rural areas, and their access to modern technology that could improve their production is very limited. And then we have people who sit in the urban areas who have access to this funding and then just not necessarily put it into as much use as is expected. And we come up with reports that say, oh, the agri sector is not doing enough. Oh, the farmers are not doing enough. Oh, there's so much that needs to be done. When the real guys who are getting their hands dirty, the real guys who are doing the work are not well equipped. So as regards catalyzing, of course, there's so much that is left to be done. We are scratching the surface. We have not even started, to be honest. I know that the last reports MBS released said agriculture contributed about 29% to the general growth of the economy. But how much of that contribution can we improve? If we have, like it was rightly mentioned by the last speaker, we have farm produce that go wasted because we do not have proper storage systems. We do not have off-takers. We do not have a market large enough to consume what we produce at the point when we produce it. We do not have mechanisms in place to either process this fresh farm produce and turn them into something that we can export to a larger market. How do we improve How do we scale up, even if we have the funds? So as regards catalyzing, trust me, there's so much that we have to do. We are barely scratching the surface.
Okay, we hope to get to some point, where we would, leave that corridor of scratching and move to something very higher, which you termed upscaling. Professor Okutaya, in your earlier submission, you talked about the policy inconsistency, policy somersault, and having the right institutional framework. I want to speak to that once more, because one, if we do not get the policy right, whatever implementation you are putting in place may not be cascaded down, to the categories of farmers that we have, because we have categories of farmers, and of course the least of them are the lower income farmers, those who do not even have access to any kind of credit, those who don't have access to any kind of facility that will enable them to scale up their production capacity. Now, what can be done in a country like this, now that we now understand that agriculture should be seen as a business enterprise? What are the critical moves that should be made to ensure that we enshrine agriculture and entrepreneurship in our agricultural system?
Thank you very much. We need to, let us be very frank and look at the issues with some critical mindset. Number one, the policy issue, let's tell ourselves the truth. We cannot continue to deceive ourselves that everything is well, especially in the agricultural sector, when the policy framework is not sustained over administration or over leadership. For example, agricultural extension policy in Nigeria. Nigeria belongs to the African Advisory Forum for Agricultural Service in Africa, AFAS, Nigerian Forum for Agricultural Advisory Services, of which I'm privileged to be a member of the executive as public relations advisor. Nigeria is going to host in 2023 the Agricultural Extension Week. Uganda hosted the last one. But look at those countries, they have robust extension policies on the ground. Meanwhile, everybody look up to Nigeria as the giant that should lead in terms of agriculture, in terms of policy, in terms of initiatives. But unfortunately, we don't even have agriculture policy on the ground. For over 4 years to come up with an agriculture policy is being changed from one management, one leader to the other, is not seen the light of the day. And this is the only way you can get to the rural producers, you can get to the massive of small-scale producers who are responsible for 70% of the entire agricultural production in this country. The rural folks, thank God for the sustenance of Rural Access Mobility Project that has now added marketing as a component to the current dispensation, because they realize that they have opened up the rural areas. Farmers in those affected states are able to bring their food to the places where they can move to urban centers now. Now they have added marketing, and including all the activities in preservation that Idowu mentioned, you can add those ones. So as a matter of fact, we must address the fundamentals. Government must be the enabler of these activities to happen by creating an enabling environment, policy framework, the institutional to sustain some of these things that can work for the advantage of the producers.
There have been interventions by this administration.
What I'm saying is that
and the rest of them.
That's why I'm saying that it should be expanded beyond the current scope. Because if, as Kingsley said, the production should be enhanced, value addition at every level should be also enhanced, so that the wastages will be reduced and that people will have attraction. Mr. Aziz will bear witness that some of our policies in agriculture over the years that will develop a framework, like the Benin, which you are familiar with, 9-4 oilseed and Malaysia story, that wasted time. Malaysia took over now a leading world. The same thing, agricultural processing zones that we initiated in this country about 5-6 years ago, that Nigeria has been dilly-dallying. Ethiopia took it over, now using their own centers and borrowed the same thing from Nigeria, and they are now exporting to the rest of the world. Now we have even entrepreneurs who are producing and adding value. I have an example in Apple by one business visa. doing the same. You see women coming with value-added products that can compete with all these products around the world. But what of the expansion? Government should look for this kind of people to support them and provide credit facilities. The banking industry in Nigeria must support agriculture by providing credit and reduce the conditions so that these cooperatives and people can have access.
You know, Professor Yahaya, that's a very valid issue. I would like Alhaji Aziz to also come in here. You're out of service now, but what is the whole idea of agribusiness? Is it the entrenchment of subsistence, entrenchment of mom and pop business, or ultimately big business where you can have volume and therefore the spin-off will be more healthy for everyone? I'm asking this question away from, let's say, food crops. Let's take aquaculture, for instance. When I hear of aquaculture, sometimes it doesn't get beyond people having a fish pond in their backyard and disturbing their neighbors, you know, with the private nuisance of breeding catfish and tilapia. But where are the fishing trawlers? The Hebrew family made part of its big cash from Hebrew fish when we were growing up in the 60s and in the 70s. Where are our fishing trawlers? We hear that foreigners will come to our entire coastline, harvest our fish, and go away. So what is this agribusiness that we are talking about? Is it for me to be scratching the earth, or where Kieran and I will go and produce KK Gari, you know, and we are selling?
Yeah, thank you very much for this question, and I'm happy you are now a professional in agriculture, even though you are mixing aquaculture with deep sea, ocean fisheries. And I know you are trying, and we need to encourage you. We need to encourage. But let me quickly go back to a very intelligent question asked by Corinne, which is also, what do we need to do?
That's the point.
What do we need to do to facilitate people, to attract people into agribusiness? Most especially the youth. Because there's a saying in Yoruba that there's no more farmers on the farm. They are getting old. And so, since we have the largest population now among the energetic youth who are engaging in all sorts of bad vices, there's now need to attract them. What do we need to do? One, what do we need to do to incentivize them, to bring them into agriculture, to ensure that we make agriculture attractive, so that they can do it big? And I'm going to now zero in on very good question you asked about aquaculture. Don't forget, Nigeria is the leaders in aquaculture in the whole of Africa now. We are the one, and even the gap with other countries is far, far. We are doing very well. What do we need to do? We need to provide incentive. What are the kind of incentives? One, there must be security, because there's nothing you can do if there's no security. Take the case of a young guy in my area, in Oyo area, who came from the United States of America to invest in agriculture, was doing very well, a very big farm, but had to lose his life due to security in the Agri-Business area. We are all familiar with this. So security, security, security. Two, provide infrastructures. When you look at the master infrastructure plan, Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development alone cannot provide the infrastructure in rural areas. According to the master infrastructural plan developed by Federal Ministry of Budget and National Planning, we require almost $1.3 trillion to do infrastructure in every nooks and crannies on this country. The total budget of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture is no more than 70 billion. So this cannot even develop rural infrastructure in a local government. So to do rural infrastructure, we have to be innovative. We have to bring in innovation. And don't forget that before you can tie down the youth in the rural area, you must make agriculture romantic, if I should use the dance ball. You must make it psychedelic. You must make it loving in such a way that they will love it and they want to stay in the rural area. To do this, there must be light, there must be internet. Government came with an innovative method of doing it in the past, which is known as special agro-industrial processing. So what do we mean by special agro-industrial? Look at, and this can create competitions in every nook. Go to Cadaver Valley where they are producing tomato. Look for international company or national company that can be an anchor investor here. Provide infrastructure for production, for processing, for marketing, everything, the whole value chain in this area. Dedicated to this area by government, by state, federal, local government, by companies. And once you do this, you will discover that we started it, Ethiopia did it, and they are now exporting out of the country. Thank God the government has taken it back. Well, more than 17 companies are now investing in it. About 17 of them will soon start, and you start seeing people, instead of moving from rural to urban, they are now moving, they will now be moving from urban to rural area. There will be security there, there will be road there, there will be light there will be power there will be every infrastructure there. All the value chain segments of production, processing, value will be done in the same place.
That's a kind of a cluster.
Thank you. May God bless you. And this is the way, so that by the time we finish with Karawa Valley, we go to Oyo area where they are producing. We also go to Niger Delta like our...
yes, we are going to him. By
the time we do it in all these areas, we will have succeeded.
We are going to him now. You are talking about...
thank you very much.
Thank you. Having cluster, from production to production process.
Everything will be
the entire value chain. All right. Let's return to you, Tunji Idowu. PIND is a non-profit organization facilitating access to inputs, markets, and technologies for smallholder farmers in Niger Delta. Tell us how this has, played out. Since your organization is responsible for all that I've mentioned now, how are the smallholder farmers being facilitated in your domain with respect to marketing, inputs, technologies, and what have you? Somebody has said here that it's even difficult for smallholder farmers to key into the modern technologies that we require to enhance our agriculture. So what is happening in your domain with respect to these?
I'd like to respond to that, latching onto something that Sharon said earlier on. We realize that the bulk of Nigeria's agriculture, especially the production side, is hinged on smallholder farmers. And so when PIND was established 12 years ago and we started to study and look at the root causes of the problems, we knew we had to focus on those guys. And part of what the data showed us from our research was that a lot of them were using antiquated methods. So the first thing we needed to focus on was how to improve their knowledge about what they're doing. Knowledge of these resistant seeds, stems, and things of that nature. We focus on 5 value chains: aquaculture, cassava, cocoa, poultry, and oil palm. And so we started working with them in that regard, helping them to be exposed to better knowledge, attitude, and practices to improve their productivity. We linked them up because we don't do things directly. We are there as facilitators so that when we exit the intervention, the real market actors can continue without things crashing as it happens with some other development projects. So we link them up with those who can provide them service. They were not aware of the right inputs. They were not aware of chemicals, pesticides, fertilizers that can help improve their productivity, improve their yield, and also protect them against diseases. So for the last 10 years since we started working with them across these value chains, this is the kind of thing that we do so that you can improve their income. A lot of them have had their incomes improved.
Okay, Mr. Tunji Ido, so we have to apologize. We're out of time virtually. And Sharon Sage, your closing thoughts in, can you do Usain Bolt, less than 10 seconds?
All right, so at the company where I work, Lofty Inc., we're currently engaged in a project called Project Sparrow. Now that project is focused on training 70 MSMEs in the agri sector. They do agri-business or agri-tech business. And what we're looking to do is train these people, rural farmers, 50 of them, and then eventually would scale down to 20 who would be given financing to upscale what they're doing already. We would also have access to 25,000 smallholder farmers to improve what they do. I had mentioned earlier that usually we say funds are not available, but this project is being funded by USAID. And we're going into the rural areas to meet these real farmers, not those that just sit down and say they're farmers. We're going to meet them. And the outcome we're expecting to have is make agriculture look beautiful. Make agriculture produce for itself enough to take care of its people and to export.
Okay, but you have not really gotten to my local government, right? So we hope to see you with this program. Just to have a lot of smallholder farmers who are involved in this. At this point, gentlemen and lady, we have to call it a day, and thank you immensely for being here for the program. Professor Mohammed Kota Yahya, Professor of Agriculture, we thank you for coming. We're running out of time. So Aziz Moyewa, former Director of Agri-Business, Minister of Agriculture, we thank you also for being here this morning. Sharon Sage, we need to have you more on this program on agricultural matters, because we need to tell us a lot about what USAID is doing in this connection. Thank you indeed. Tunji Idowu, Executive Director of Foundation for Partnership Initiatives in Niger Delta, we also appreciate your contribution this morning on the show. We had the Professor Ekani partially, but he couldn't be part of the program because of issues relating to connection to his Zoom line. And so we call it today. Well, thank you indeed for being here this morning.
All right, the program is back tomorrow, same time, 7 in the morning. Look after yourselves and one another. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Kirian Omar. Do have a great day.